They took her at dawn, when the fog still clung to the fields like a last breath. She was 20 winters old enough to have learned the shape of her own name, the sound of it spoken by her mother, the way it carried meaning when called across the riverbanks of her home. That name would be the first thing they took, though she would not understand that until much later. The soldiers came with iron discipline and practiced boredom. Their armor caught the pale light, red cloaks dulled by dust and blood from other places that now meant nothing to them. Her village had already burned by the time they reached her. Smoke curled lazily, indifferent to grief. She remembered the smell more than the flame's wet ash, scorched grain, the sharp copper of fear. Someone screamed her name. Someone else fell. A hand clamped around her arm, not violently, not gently, efficiently, as one would seize an object that might roll away. She did not fight, not because she did not want to, but because the world had already tilted into something unreal. She was bound with others, women mostly, a few children, some old men left alive because killing them would have been an inconvenience. The soldiers spoke Latin among themselves, their voices calm, occasionally amused. They did not look at the captives' faces for long. Faces were irrelevant. Bodies mattered. Bodies could be counted. They marched for days. Food came when it came, water when it did not slow them. At night, the campfires burned low, and the captives huddled together for warmth that did not come. She learned the sound of Roman laughter then, short, sharp, disconnected from mercy. She learned how silence could be heavier than chains. Sometimes a woman would be pulled away into the dark between the tents. No one asked where she went. No one asked when she returned, changed in ways that were visible even in the half-light. The soldiers did not speak of it. There was no word for violation where ownership was assumed. When they reached the city, she expected noise. She expected chaos. Instead, Rome unfolded with a kind of terrifying order, stone upon stone. Roads cut straight as if the earth itself had been commanded to obey. Aqueducts arched overhead like the bones of some vast creature. People moved with purpose, untroubled by the column of captives passing through the gates. This was not spectacle. This was routine. The slave market sat near the forum, close enough that the voices of senators drifted across it like background music. Marble steps led down into a space where human beings were arranged with the same care as livestock. The air smelled of oil, sweat, and something faintly sweet that made her stomach turn. She was stripped, examined, turned this way and that. Fingers pressed into her arms, her jaw pried open. A man commented on her teeth, another on her hips. No one spoke to her. A wax tablet hung from her neck with symbols scratched into it. Age, origin, health. Her name was not there. It was unnecessary. She watched a woman beside her collapse, her knees giving out without warning. The handler cursed and struck her once, not in anger but in irritation. Order had been disrupted. The woman was dragged away. She did not return. When it was her turn, the auctioneer's voice rose and fell with theatrical ease. He praised her youth, her unscarred skin, her strength. He did not mention fear, because fear did not lower a price. A man in a white toga raised his hand. Another hesitated, then withdrew. The hammer fell. Ownership changed. Her new master did not speak to her as they walked through the city. His villa stood on a hill, surrounded by gardens trimmed into shapes that suggested control over nature itself. Fountains murmured softly. The walls were painted with scenes of gods pursuing mortals, their faces frozen in ecstasy or terror depending on the artist's mood. She would come to recognize the irony, though no one expected her to. She was given a new name that evening. Spoken casually, as one might rename a tool, it was shorter, easier for Roman tongues. The old name retreated inside her, curling in on itself like something wounded. The household functioned with smooth precision. Slaves moved through corridors without meeting eyes. Their steps quiet, their presence designed to be unnoticed. An older woman showed her where to sleep, on a mat near the kitchens, close enough that the heat never quite left the stones. She showed her how to pour wine without spilling, how to lower her gaze, how to make herself small. There were rules that were not spoken. She learned them by watching who flinched and who did not. The first time he summoned her, it was without ceremony. A gesture, a word spoken to another slave who then came for her. The room was lit by oil lamps that cast more shadow than light. He did not look cruel. That, she would learn, was the most dangerous thing of all. His face was calm, his movements unhurried. This was not an act of passion. It was an assertion. Afterwards she was sent away. No one asked if she was hurt. No one asked anything at all. The world resumed its shape as if nothing had occurred. That was how it always was. That was how it was meant to be. Days blurred into one another. She worked, she waited, she learned the rhythms of a life that no longer belonged to her. Sometimes he called for her, sometimes others did. The law did not distinguish between them. Her body was part of the estate, like the olive trees or the marble busts lining the atrium. Damage mattered only insofar as it reduced value. She learned to make her mind a smaller place, to retreat into silence, to observe without reacting. Fear became a constant hum beneath everything, like the sound of the city itself. She watched Roman women pass through the streets in fine garments, their laughter light, their eyes shielded by status. She wondered if they knew. She wondered if knowing would have mattered. Once, during a festival, music filled the villa. Guests reclined on couches, eating delicacies brought from the edges of the empire. Someone commented on the peace Rome had brought to the world. Roads, laws, order. She stood against the wall, pouring wine, invisible. Her reflection flickered in polished bronze. Her eyes duller now, her posture trained into submission. She barely recognized herself. At night, when the city quieted, she remembered her mother's hands, rough from work but gentle. She remembered the river at dusk, the way the water caught the last light. These memories hurt more than the present. They were proof of something stolen that would never be returned. Years passed. She aged in small, unnoticed increments. New captives arrived, wide-eyed and trembling. She saw herself in them and felt nothing. Feeling was dangerous. Feeling was a luxury she could not afford. Rome endured. Emperors rose and fell. The villa remained. The system remained. Slavery was not a flaw in the empire, it was its foundation, mortared into place with law and tradition. The suffering it required was simply absorbed, rendered invisible by scale and silence. When she was no longer young, when her value shifted from desire to labor, she was reassigned without comment. Another part of the machine. Her body carried marks that no one recorded. Her name, both of them, existed only in her own fading memory. One evening, as she scrubbed the stone floor of a corridor lined with portraits of ancestors, she paused. For a moment, she imagined the future. Scholars debating Rome's greatness. Tourists marveling at ruins. Words like civilization spoken with reverence. She wondered if any of them would hear her voice beneath the stone, if they would know what had been built into these walls alongside roads and laws. The thought passed. The work remained. Empires, she understood then, are not sustained by glory alone. They are sustained by countless lives pressed flat beneath their weight, by stories erased so thoroughly that silence itself becomes tradition. Rome would be remembered for its arches and its order, its legions and its laws. The women like her would not be remembered at all. Their suffering would sink into the ground, absorbed by time, leaving behind only stone, cold, enduring and mute.